When I proposed, she didn't smile, didn't cry. She laughed, looked me dead in the eyes and said, "You thought I'd marry you." That laugh burned more than her words ever could. And the worst part? A week later, I found out my best friend had been sleeping with her while stealing my work behind my back. Most people would have exploded, yelled, fought, broken everything in sight. Not me. I didn't get mad. I got quiet. And then I did something better. So, Reddit, no fancy intro this time. The title alone tells you enough. Grab a snack, because the story doesn't make sense until you see the whole picture. I'm 25 now, and it all started back at UT Austin. Junior year. Off-campus housing that was basically a cracked-out showbox with central air. I ended up rooming with Fabian, not because we were best friends, but because we were both too practical to waste money on fancy dorms and too late to find sane roommates. Fabian was the smooth-talking business major who could charm professors into deadline extensions just by showing up at office hours with coffee. Dr. Miller, "I've been wrestling with the philosophical implications of your assignment all week," he'd say. Meanwhile, I was a guy who fixed the busted AC units with YouTube tutorials and a clearance toolbox. We shared an old pickup, did our own repairs, hit the gym early, helped friends move. On the surface, it looked like a solid friendship. The balance was simple. I handled anything that required skill. He handled anything that required charm. The summer before Meredith came into the picture, Fabian and I built my dad's workshop in Bastrop. Dad had bought the materials, but didn't know the first thing about assembling them. So we showed up with a borrowed circular saw and way too much confidence. It took us 4 weekends, double what it should have, but we made it happen. When it was finished, Fabian insisted we take a photo like we were contractors. Arms crossed, safety glasses still on, capped backward like he just supervised the building of a skyscraper. He called it our first construction project. I didn't think much of it at the time, but looking back, that moment was a red flag. Fabian had this habit. When it came to credit, he always made sure he stood in front. 3 months later, I saw the proof. Fabian had posted that same photo on LinkedIn with the caption, "Proud of this build. Leadership and problem-solving in action." Posted like he had orchestrated the whole thing, when in reality, he mostly held board while I figured out why nothing was square. I noticed one small detail in the background. My custom shim wedged into a joist he had installed wrong. Something only I would recognize. My invisible fingerprint. That's when I realized this wasn't new. Back in group projects, he played the salesman while I stayed up debugging until 3 a.m. He wore the blazer. I did the work. He got recognized for leadership. I got caffeine jitters. Sophomore year, we had a database design project worth nearly half our grade. Fabian pitched building an inventory management system for his uncle's auto parts store. Great idea. Professors loved it. I spent 3 weeks coding a clean interface, search functionality, barcode scanning, automated reorder alerts. Fabian, he showed up twice, clicked around on the finish screens, and called it testing. Presentation day. He walked in wearing a tie, talk about stakeholder engagement and agile methodology. Professor Wayne asked technical questions about database normalization. Fabian dodged with buzzwords until I had to step in with actual answers. We got an A. Fabian got invited to the dean's reception. That should have been my wake-up call. But it wasn't. I told myself, this is just how teams work. Some people build, some people sell. What I didn't realize, Fabian wasn't complimenting me. He was using me. Even our senior capstone played out the same way. I built a financial tracking app. He made slides about market penetration strategies. Guess who got invited to the business school's innovation showcase? Spoiler, not the guy who wrote the code. But I brushed it off. Then Meredith showed up. It was July in Austin, the kind of heat that melts asphalt. A friend's pool party. She had quick wit, an easy laugh, and somehow managed to keep plant alive in Texas summers. She remembered people's details, your dog's name, your favorite coffee, what you were doing that weekend. Talking to her didn't feel like work. Within 15 minutes, she roasted my truck rims, so they looked like they belonged on a used car lot. But then she added, the truck itself is solid. I respect that. And just like that, we clicked. Fabian was there, of course, working the crowd like he was campaigning, telling anyone who'd listen about his downtown consulting internship. 2 years later, Meredith and I were living the normal couple life. Shared Netflix password, his and hers coffee makers, shoes by the door. We talked about neighborhoods, dog breeds, even debated granite versus quartz countertops. She had opinions on everything, and I loved that. One night, while assembling IKEA furniture, she looked at me and said, "Most guys just want to follow directions. You actually listen when I explain why the instructions are wrong." That was her thing. Everything was a project that could be optimized. Meeting her parents felt like applying for top security clearance. Her dad's handshake could crush walnuts. His stare made me question if my shirt was buttoned wrong. He tested me for weeks, but eventually warmed up. She's got expensive taste. Hope you're prepared to keep up. Her mom was subtler, but just as sharp. At a barbecue, she casually pulled out a phone, scrolling through photos of Meredith's sister's wedding, each one a silent benchmark of what she expected from me. And that's where the real story began. Her mom had this way of showing me pictures of weddings like she was slipping me a hint in code. "Look at this venue," she'd say, scrolling through her phone. $12,000 just for the reception hall, but worth every penny. Then her eyes would drift out the window, straight at my old truck parked in the driveway, and she'd smile. "I'm sure you and Meredith will find something perfect when the time comes." So I started grinding. Extra freelance gigs, weekend app builds, small business websites, anything that paid decently and didn't require me to put on a tie. My day job already ate 40 hours a week. Freelance took another 20. Nights blurred into 2 a.m. code sessions fueled by energy drinks, but every invoice cleared brought me closer to the goal, a ring that actually meant something. She once said, while window shopping at the Domain, that diamonds were basic. Emeralds are intentional, she told me. They show you're actually listening. And I listened. I found a vintage emerald in an Art Deco setting at an estate sale in Round Rock. 6 months of weekends went into that ring. But it was exactly what she had described. I even showed it to Fabian. He laughed, clapped me on the back like we'd just signed a deal. "About damn time," he said. I thought he was happy for me. Looking back, that grin carried something else. The plan was simple. Proposal at Vespaio, the same corner booth where we had our first real date. 2 years ago, she'd ordered the gnocchi and called it life-changing. I thought recreating that moment would mean something. But the week leading up to it, Meredith's tone started to shift. Not suspicious, just little entitled comments that stung in ways I couldn't name. "When we get married, we're definitely doing a destination wedding. Probably Italy. Somewhere with good food." Then, one day she teased, "My ring finger's a size 6, by the way, just in case you're wondering." I laughed it off. "What do you mean?" "What?" "Nothing. Aren't we eventually getting married?" She smiled, hugged me, brushed it off with innocence that felt too practiced. Fabian had his own strange energy, asking about my big plans with that knowing smirk, like he was in on some joke I wasn't invited to. "Nervous about Saturday?" he asked, which threw me, because I never told him the date. Should I be nervous? I shot back. He shrugged. "Just saying. Big decisions. Got to make sure you're ready." Saturday night came. Vespaio. She walked in looking Instagram ready, head to toe curated like she'd been styled by an algorithm. Outfit that probably cost more than my truck payment, but looked effortless on her. Phone face down on the table. We ordered. We settled into that comfortable silence couples earn after years, where you don't have to fill every second with chatter. The waiter cleared our plates. Glasses refilled. Perfect timing. I slid the black velvet box from my jacket, set it by her water glass. My heart steady, my voice even. She looked at the box like I'd just placed a cockroach on her plate. Not excitement, not shock, confusion, edged with irritation. The couple at the next table went still, eyes flicking over. You could feel the air shift. 20 seconds of silence. Then, with a scoff sharp enough to cut glass, she said, "You? Seriously? You thought I'd marry you?" That you landed harder than the words. Conversations around us died out. Silverware froze midday. Even the background music felt like it dimmed. And then she twisted the knife. No offense. You're sweet and all, but you're more like my placeholder boyfriend. Until I figure out what I actually want. Placeholder boyfriend, said in front of a packed restaurant with the casual cruelty of someone ordering a side salad. I sat there 3 seconds, maybe 4. Let the words sink in. Then I picked up the box, stood, and said, "Thanks for clarifying." Every head turned as I walked out. The old guy at the bar leaned forward like he didn't want to miss a second. Even our server peeked out from the kitchen, caught the scene, and retreated. Meredith sat frozen, mouth half open, probably calculating whether chasing me would save or destroy her image. I didn't give her the chance. Drove straight home. Launched into what I call my 48-hour processing protocol. No emotions. No big decisions. Just movement. 3 loads of laundry. Garage reorganized. Streaming passwords changed. Bank accounts checked. Browser history cleared. Digital hygiene for a life reset. The next morning, she texted, "Look, the way you left me at the restaurant was a jerk move. Okay, I had to pay for dinner myself. Also, I need space to think. Don't make this complicated." Space. She needed space. Like I was a clingy one. Like I hadn't just offered her forever and been told I was a placeholder for my trouble. Fine. Space was easy. But she wasn't done. Monday morning, she showed up at my duplex with her sister and 2 friends. No warning, no question, just marched in like a moving crew. I held the door, carried boxes, played the decent ex while every muscle in me screamed to change the locks on the spot. Before leaving, she dropped my spare key on the counter beside a note. "Thanks for everything. You'll make someone very happy someday." Her condescension was thick enough to spread on toast. Her sister, Victoria, gave me a look like I'd failed some invisible test. "Meredith's been stressed lately. Maybe you pushed too hard, too fast." And just like that, the girl I thought I'd build forever with was gone, leaving me with an empty keyring, an unused ring, and a silence that hummed louder than any fight ever could. Maybe, I told myself, as I helped load boxes into their car, half the stuff inside I'd pay for anyway. And when they pulled out of the driveway, my duplex finally felt like mine again. No reality TV echoing from the living room. No hair straightener left humming in the bathroom outlet. No second coffee mug waiting in the sink every morning. Just me, my space, and the kind of silence that makes you realize how much noise another person adds to your life. It should have been peaceful. Would have been if Meredith had just stayed gone. But she didn't. 2 weeks and 3 days of radio silence. Long enough for me to fall back into rhythm. Gym, wake, meal prep, the violent Netflix shows she'd always vetoed. I even hovered over my old dating apps, wondering if it was time to peek back into that world. Then, one Thursday night at 11 p.m., my phone lit up like a fire alarm. Screenshots. 4 different people. Same Instagram story. There she was, Meredith, leaning into Fabian's shoulder like she belonged there all along. His hand gripping her waist like it had been rehearsed. And the caption? "Sometimes your soulmate was right there all along. Grateful for real love, authentic second chances." A rooftop bar downtown. The same neighborhood where I'd taken her for her birthday just 8 months earlier. My college buddy called within minutes. "Dude, you seeing this?" "Yep. Want me to come over? Bring drinks and questionable advice." I told him I was good. But the truth? The timing was too perfect. Too staged. Like they coordinated the reveal for maximum damage. Minutes later, Fabian texted me directly. 4 words. "Hey bro, we need to talk." I stared at those words for an hour. 4 words holding 5 years of friendship, a rejected proposal, and now, this circus on a rooftop. Left him on read. Went to bed. But the universe wasn't done with me. Friday morning, an email hit my inbox with a subject line that turned my breakfast to cardboard. Q3 Innovation Showcase, Austin Municipal Reporting System, by Fabian Caruso. The timing wasn't random. Thursday night, the Instagram reveal. Friday morning, Fabian taking credit for a project I've been building in silence for 6 months. And here's the kicker. Only 3 people even knew about that system. My city contact, who'd signed an NDA. My manager, Steve, who couldn't care less about gossip, and Fabian, because I'd stupidly vented to him during one of our late-night complaint sessions. I walked into the break room at work, Derek by the coffee machine. He nodded at me. "Yo, saw the announcement. Fabian presenting that city project you were working on. Weird, though. I thought he was building some CRM thing." Derek wasn't nosy, but he noticed things. And if he was suspicious, other people would be too, because municipal reporting systems weren't Fabian's arena. They were mine. Back-end architecture, UI design, database optimization. It had my fingerprints all over it. And I mean that literally. Months ago, I'd hidden a digital fingerprint inside the code, a unique phrase buried in the documentation. Infrastructure redundancy cascade protocols. Sounded official enough to pass, but too specific to be coincidence. My secret watermark. That same afternoon, Steve emailed me. "Fabian mentioned you might have some insights for his project. Could you review his documentation before the showcase?" The audacity! He wanted me to help him polish my own work. I wrote back immediately. "Happy to attend the showcase. We'll provide feedback after." Translation: I'll be there, and I'll be ready. But the betrayal wasn't just Fabian. Remember the logo designs I created for Meredith 6 months earlier? 30 hours of free work. Vector files, social media templates, the whole branding package, because I was being a supportive boyfriend. Well, now those exact designs were plastered all over her Instagram, her new coaching business, her website, her cards, my work, her profit. The metadata didn't lie. Original files created on my computer, dates lining up perfectly with her quick logo request. She hadn't just taken my designs, she'd built her new identity on them. So, the pattern snapped into focus. Fabian took my project. Meredith took my designs. Both of them feeding on the work I bled weekends into. Both of them building their futures out of my hours. That weekend, I laid it all out on a timeline. Fabian's questions, Meredith's questions, the overlap, the milestones, and then, Saturday morning, the smoking gun. Scrolling old texts, I found one thread that hit like battery acid. March 20th, Meredith casually asking about my projects. Same day, Fabian probing me for municipal system details. Not random, coordinated. Looking deeper, it was everywhere. April, Meredith suddenly obsessed with my weekend coding. April, Fabian asking about government database security. Different conversations, same script. They weren't just dating. They were running reckon. By Monday, I'd had enough. I picked up the phone, made 3 calls. The first was to Elena, intellectual property attorney, the kind of lawyer who spoke in bullet points and billed like her time was gold. After I told her everything, she didn't flinch. "Here's the play," she said. "File formal complaints with your company's legal department and the city. Document everything. We'll make the rest happen." And just like that, the war began. The first call I made was to the city procurement office. No emotion, no back and forth, just clean facts and a paper trail that could cut glass. Copyright infringement notices, licensing demands, cease and desist orders. If Fabian wanted to play with my work, he'd have to pay for the privilege retroactively. My contract was clear. Anything I built on my own time, with my own tools, without company secrets, belonged to me. From that moment forward, I stopped talking as a friend or colleague. Every word went through counsel. The second call was to James in corporate compliance. Turns out my company had an entire portal just for cases like this. The category? Unauthorized use of personal IP. The description? Employee pass off a personal project as company innovation, a stunt that could drag the whole firm into liability. The third call took me to the Austin City Attorney's office. I laid it out to a voice that sounded way too familiar with this kind of betrayal. They directed me to the procurement fraud hotline. If Fabian's pattern wasn't just arrogance but misrepresentation, they'd take it seriously. By Monday morning, I'd sent out 3 packets of documentation. By 10:30, confirmation emails were stacked in my inbox. And by 1:45, I was sitting in a conference room under fluorescent lights, staring at HR and legal while they asked the questions that mattered. Did you create this during work hours? No. Did you use company equipment? No. Did you authorize Fabian to access or share your files? Never. They scribbled notes while I slid a USB drive across the table, a digital autopsy of my wake. GIT history, timestamps, unique identifiers, hash verifications, every breadcrumb in place. At 3:20, the second meeting came. Same room. Only this time, Fabian was waiting. He looked like a man wishing for anesthesia before the root canal even started. HR wasted no time. You're withholding company resources and creating a hostile work environment, Fabian blurted, voice thin but defiant. I kept my tone even. I filed an IP complaint this morning regarding an authorized use of my personal project. I'll answer anything about my conduct. Did I threaten him? No. Did I try to damage his reputation? No. Did I spread my complaint to coworkers? Absolutely not. Fabian's eyes stayed glued to the table, like maybe the Woodgrain had the answers he couldn't find. When HR asked him for proof of hostile behavior, he thumbed through his phone, searching for texts that never existed. He's been cold, unfriendly, refuses to collaborate, he muttered. The HR rep didn't even blink. Collaboration isn't mandatory unless management assigns it. Has he interfered with your work directly? Fabian hesitated. No, but still. Thank you. That's all we need. The legal counsel leaned in with one last question. Can you explain how you developed this municipal system without company resources or outside collaboration? Fabian straightened, rehearsed. I researched best practices, used online tutorials, standard process. 6 weeks. I'm a fast learner. That was my cue. Calmly, I pointed to the unique phrase in the documentation, infrastructure redundancy cascade protocols. A fingerprint only I would have planted. Fabian flinched, but forced a shrug. Industry standard terms. Sure, counsel said flatly. We'll verify that. The meeting ended, but Fabian wasn't done. He cornered me in the parking lot, anger boiling under his forced calm. You're going to destroy both our careers over this. I looked at him standing by his new car, shinier than his salary should allow. You still have a nerve to talk to me? You should have thought about that before you hit present. This is insane. We're friends. Not anymore. You'll regret this. I'll make it right. Co-credit. 50-50 split. Licensing deals. That's when I snapped. I grabbed his shirt and pulled him close enough to see the panic in his eyes. You've got 2 choices, I said, voice like steel. Walk away, or crawl away. He chose walking. That night, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Meredith. Her words read like poison. Return my ring or I tell everyone who you really are. You owe me compensation for 2 years of my life. I forwarded it to Elena, my attorney. Her reply came in 4 words. This is extortion. Perfect. By morning, the fallout had begun. Derek swung by my desk with a coffee and a whisper. Fabian was already floundering in front of the architecture review board. They were grilling him on schema design, algorithm choices, the kind of questions only the real author could answer. Fabian had nothing. The board smelled blood. Meanwhile, Meredith's Instagram lit up with gray placeholders. Every stolen design, every post branded with my work, gone. Copyright takedowns. Her response was almost laughable. Haters and legal bullies can't stop my success journey. The universe protects authentic energy. The comments turned savage. Friend demanding answers, clients infused, rivals quietly enjoying the chaos. Even her sister, Victoria, texted me directly. What did you do to Meredith? She's devastated. Stop this now. I sent that to Elena, too. More evidence for the pile. Then came showcase day. Picture corporate theater at its finest. Folding chairs lined up like a TED Talk nobody wanted to attend, a projector humming like it resented being plugged in, department heads scrolling through their phones. Fabian walked out confident, selling buzzwords like they were stock options. Streamlined municipal workflows. Citizen-centric design. The man could sell ice cubes to Eskimos and make them say thank you. Heads nodded like dashboard bobbleheads. I sat in the 3rd row, laptop open. On the surface, I was taking notes like a supportive peer. In reality, I was time-stamping every stolen detail, separating what he got right My work, from the clumsy filler he'd made up. Halfway through, Sarah from QA leaned toward me. This looks exactly like your style. Did you collaborate on this? I forced a casual smile. Just listening and learning. And typed another note, because every slide Fabian showed was another nail in his coffin. The documentation flickered on the projector for barely 2 seconds. Long enough for me to see it, long enough for my stomach to drop. Infrastructure redundancy cascade protocols. My phrase, my midnight code, stitched together at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday, now paraded across the screen as if Fabian had birthed it himself. The room applauded. City directors leaned forward, impressed, already talking timelines and rollouts. Fabian soaked it up with the polish of a man who'd never deployed a database in his life. When the tough questions came, migration, security, actual implementation, he dodged with buzzwords and charm. Translation? He had no damn clue. Derek caught me after. His voice low, his eyes sharp. That phrase, not standard, sound like something you'd write. He wasn't guessing. He was telling me. My only reply, interesting observation. Message received. People were connecting the dots. That night, my kitchen table became mission control. A laptop glowing in the dark, stacks of notes, empty mugs. One search confirmed it. My phrase existed nowhere on the internet except my repository. My commits, my timestamps, my digital fingerprints, all locked, hashed, and irrefutable. Proof that couldn't be faked. And then the timeline unfolded. Fabian asking oddly specific questions weeks after I'd first mentioned the project. Me, answering like a friend. Him, collecting like a thief. 6 weeks flat from casual mention to polished theft. Efficient. I had to give him that. Meanwhile, Meredith had been busy too. Her website, shiny and polished, using my logo designs without so much as a text asking permission. Commercial use. No license. The invoice wrote itself. Cease and desist, plus $3,500 in retroactive fees. Deadline, 7 to 2 hours. Then Fabian slipped. A text pinged in. First, the olive branch. Let's co-develop. I'll make sure you get credit and a promotion. 2 minutes later, the threat. Push this and I'll tell everyone you stole the code from a contractor. Your word against mine. Both screenshots forwarded to HR, legal, and Elena before I'd even finished reading them. Some people dig holes. Fabian kept digging. Elena didn't waste time. That second text, that's witness intimidation. Potentially criminal. Fraud, false statements, felony territory. I'm sending this to the DA. The legal meeting was brisk, almost surgical. My documentation had been reviewed, locked, and verified. Fabian had failed to provide technical proof of anything. His project? Suspended. The city contract? Pulled and flagged for fraud review. Within days, his calendar cleared, his folders vanished, and he started sneaking through side doors like the building itself had turned against him. Then came the flip. My company wanted to license the very system he'd tried to steal. They wanted it through me, legit, official, proper, poetry in motion. Friday night, the doorbell rang. Meredith, eyes wide, rehearsed, already playing victim. We need to talk. She spun it as panic, as fear, as some mistake at dinner. When I pressed, the story cracked. I invested years. You owe me something. I told her the truth. I owe you nothing. She pivoted again. Fabian says you're trying to ruin his life. I reminded her, math isn't personal. Timestamps don't lie. She tried to look past me, into the duplex, like maybe the old version of me was still sitting there, waiting to forgive. But when I mentioned my attorney, the performance ended. She left. Minutes later, Instagram lit up. Her story, dripping with irony, men trying to silence strong women, diamonds made under pressure. I laughed. The hypocrisy was thick enough to walk across. By Monday, Fabian's exile was official. No more city contracts. No shiny presentations. Just internal systems, digital filing cabinets. A fitting end for a man who tried to steal a city and wound up filing its paperwork. Nobody outside the company would ever see Fabian's new assignment. Career advancement? No. It was a corporate equivalent of being shipped to Siberia. The licensing check from my work cleared the same day. I didn't splurge on champagne or a trip. I bought a professional-grade tool system. Foam inserts for every socket and wrench. Labels on every driver down to the quarter inch. Order. Control. Justice in the form of steel and precision. Tuesday morning, I walked out to my truck, and there he was. Fabian. Waiting, envelope in hand, looking like he hadn't slept in days. He had, in fact, been sleeping in his car. I screwed up, he admitted. Yep, I said. He begged. Drinks, a talk, a reset. Brother, he called me. That word made my teeth clench. I told him flat out, stop calling me that or I break his jaw. His life was unraveling, piece by piece. And then came the text. The next week, a bombshell, but not surprising. She played us both. He wrote, Meredith, pregnant, and apparently I was the only one who knew. He swore it couldn't be his. Turns out Fabian is infertile. And just like that, the twisted triangle had been living and tilted further. He'd gone digging, found her laptop open. Browser history lit up like fireworks. DMs with her gym trainer, a married co-worker, even some cowboy from Fredericksburg with family money and a ranch. Fabian was gutted. She used both of us. He said, I need my friend back. That afternoon, I let him come over. He showed up wearing the UT hoodie I'd bought him years ago, boots scuffed from when we built Dad's workshop together. He stood in my garage like he was searching for the ghost of our friendship in the old tools. She played the long game. He said, let's reset. I grabbed 2 beers, cracked them open, set one on the bench in front of him. Then I reached for my label maker, printed out a strip of tape, and stuck it onto a clean rag. Accountability. Start here. I told him. I listed it off. College TV he never paid his half for, the drill he forgot to return, the workshop plans he passed off as his own, my templates, my municipal system. You want a reset? Fine. Write it down. Acknowledge you used my work without permission. Sign it. He laughed nervously. You're serious. Dead serious. He tried to play the nostalgia card. Midnight repairs in a hotel parking lot. Shared victories. Old memories. But I wasn't budging. I slid an envelope across the bench. His old spare key inside, labeled with 3 words, access permanently revoked. You're cold, he muttered. No, I'm clear. And then I dictated his confession. Every detail, lawyer clean, unauthorized access, stolen presentations, full timeline, deletion requirements. He typed it like a man filling out his own arrest warrant. Send it, I said. He did. Copies to HR, legal, the city attorney, me. Delivery confirmed. He forced a smile. So we're good, right? Brothers again. I let him believe it. For one brief second, I let him think maybe we could rewind. Then I slid the final piece across the bench. His old threat text, stapled to the confession he just sent. Before and after, I told him. His face sank. He realized what I'd done. You set me up. You asked for a reset. I said, that's a reset. He stormed out, beer bottle tipping and spilling across the concrete. Cold brew spreading like a mirror of the wreckage between us. On his way out, he turned back. Just remember who you used to be. I held up the envelope. I remember exactly who I was. That's why you're leaving. Friday, Elena called with a wrap-up. Meredith settled the logo dispute, $4,000 plus legal fees. Fabian, he was barred from municipal contract for 2 years, salary slashed by 15%, stuck in digital filing cabinet purgatory. His LinkedIn vanished days later. Reputation erased. The tech scene in Austin moves fast, but bad news moves faster. Word spread. Fabian got caught stealing code from a government project. Even his lunch invites went ignored. Derek texted. He told Fabian he was busy indefinitely. Meanwhile, the city signed my contract. 12 months. My name on every document. Licensing fees big enough to put a down payment on something real. For once. Proper credit, proper pay, proper respect. Meredith's empire collapsed in parallel. Her site went dark. The hosting company pulled it after copyright complaints stacked up. Stolen photos, stolen content, stolen testimonials. Not just me. A trail of theft wide enough to invite fraud charges. That night, I changed everything. Rotated passwords, added two-factor to everything, locked down every corner of my digital life. My new rule was simple: document, verify, act. And for the first time in years, the peace I felt wasn't lonely. It was earned. 2 months later, Fabian still unemployed. Med is surviving off TikTok lives, crying into ring lights about betrayal, streaming from her sister's couch, begging on GoFundMe. Some mistakes you don't come back from. Some mistakes don't get fixed. They get you boned.